Hey there, welcome to another Fretboard Forensics with me, Reese Gerwin. Today, I'm going to be explaining the circle of fifths or the circle of fourths as it relates to the guitar, and we're going to do a little exploration on some aspects of what the circle actually means. So, here, the title of my book, you can see that there's this fancy rainbow circle or whatever. This C and A, obviously the headstock's covering it, but you can still see that. So the key of C has no sharps, no flats. Now, for those of you who don't know, notes can only be sharp, flat, or natural. And natural just means that there's no sharp and flat. So there's A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and then there's sharps and flats. So a sharp raises a note by a half step. If we have a G here on the 3rd fret, then this is a G sharp. Okay, if we have an A here on the 5th fret of the E string, and we flat it, it can be called an A flat. This video will explain why you don't just use sharps and flats like however, okay? You don't get to just decide arbitrarily how to do that. That's not how it works. So, anyway, the key of C, major or A minor, now the minors are in the inside of the circle here. So you have no sharps, no flats. And that is 12 o'clock on the circle. Notice there's 12 spots, 12 pitches per octave in Western music. So that just means that between this E and this E, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and then you get back to E. This is the 12th fret. So I went from 0 to 11, and that was 12 spots until you start to repeat the cycle. So the whole system that we use is based on that. Now, the key of C, major, and A minor, is just the notes C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, or A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, A, right? So, it's just the first 7 letters of the alphabet, and every other scale has those 7 letters, okay? So that's very important to understand because it's how you spell all the keys, and it's how you understand theory, and it's how you spell things. Spelling things in theory is very important to understand theory. You know, it really doesn't matter. An A flat and a G sharp aren't really inherently different from one another in their sound, but their context changes everything. So, C major, A minor, all naturals. Got that under control. So, a couple things before we proceed. The circle of fifths is called the circle of fifths or the circle of fourths. You could call it either thing, or you could call it the circle of keys to respect both of those potential names. C, in music, everything is counted by letter and number. So if C is 1, then 2 is D, 3 is E, 4 is F, 5 is G. Oh, look at that. There's a G right here. So that means that this is the 5th. G is the 5th of C. It is the root of this key. Now, what that means is that you take the same pattern that is a C major scale, whole step, half step, or whole step, half step, whole step, whole step, half step. Take that pattern, you apply it to G. That's what the circle of fifths is. It's that same whole step, half step, whole step, half step pattern applied to all the notes, okay? And then you get a relative minor. I'll just explain that real quick. The relative minor of C and A, right? You get C major, A minor. That's the same distance for every single key. It doesn't matter what key you're in. So if C is major, then A is minor. It's the exact same scale. They have the same notes. So that means if G is major, E is the relative minor. They have the same notes. D major, B minor, A major, F sharp minor, so on and so forth. Or so fifth. No, just kidding. Okay, so fourths are that way. So in this circle, like we covered C to G, C, D, E, F, G, right? That's a fifth. get in the habit. If you're trying to do this sort of mental music theory stuff, just get in the habit of using your fingers. It's a lot easier to do that. Doesn't care about the sharps or flats. The counting method does not care if you have a sharp or a flat. You're only counting letters and numbers. We'll get to the sharp and flat part here in a second. So you've got the relative minor. We got C has no sharps, no flats. G major now. If we were to start that, same scale, G, and then we go whole step, half step, whole step, half step, or sorry, whole step, half step. So what happens is you do the same pattern, you get an F sharp. Okay, so that means the key signature, which is what the circle of fifths is telling you, one of the many things that it's telling you, is the key signature. The key signature for G is F sharp. That means every note is regular or natural, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, or G, A, B, C, D, E, F, right? Except F is sharp, okay? Another quick way to sort of think about this is that the seventh note in every single major scale is a half step below the root. That's gonna help you with the sharp side of the circle, okay? So the right side, or the clockwise side, is the sharp side, and the left side, or counterclockwise side, or the fourths side, is the flat side. So flats, fourths, fifths are sharps, okay? So as you progress around the circle, you add sharps, basically. That's how the pattern goes. So I'm gonna get to that point here in a second. So the circle of fifths, right? We talked about the whole step, half step, whole step, half step. Okay, so that pattern, very important. It looks like this in C major. When you do that pattern starting on C, you get all naturals. There you go. So now, if I do that pattern starting on D flat or C sharp, now I get these notes, okay? And if I do that pattern starting on D, now I'm gonna go quickly here, or B, sorry. So there's B major, D flat major, right? So you do that pattern on every single note. Here's what you get. And we get some temporary rules here. Accidentals stay with like accidentals. Sharps with sharps, flats with flats, okay? So you don't mix the two. You get, scales always have 7 letters, A, B, C, D, E, F, G. You do not use double sharps or double flats. And with these rules in mind, the major scale is transposed to all 12 keys like so. So if the root is D flat, we get D flat, E flat, F, G flat, A flat, B flat, C, right? If it's D, you get E, F sharp, G, A, B. You get all these notes. So just take a look, just like memorize all the notes in each key. Yeah, just take a second to memorize that, okay? You got 1 minute. Just kidding. That's ridiculous. Like, you're not gonna do that. And this just looks like a bunch of notes probably to somebody who doesn't understand the circle of fifths, right? So that's just a bunch of notes at this point. But notice, there's a certain amount of sharps, there's a certain amount of flats. And we keep flats with flats, sharps with sharps. So D flat, E flat, F. Notice all these have those 7 letters. Maybe pause it, check this out. Look at this right here. And what you do to get the circle of fifths is you take the amount of sharps and flats and you order it. So C has 0, F has 1 flat, G has 1 sharp, D has 2 sharps, A has 3 sharps, E has 4 sharps, B has 5, F sharp has 6, and you get this sort of order of flats and sharps. And then you take that and you wrap it around a circle. Boom. That's why the circle of fifths or the circle of fourths or the circle of keys is the way that it is. And the power of this is that you know which sharps or which flats are in which key, okay? That is the primary use case that most people should be using the circle for at first, okay? So I'm not gonna go super in depth. I wanna make this a quick video, but that's kind of where the circle comes from in my experience. That's kind of how I've been able to categorize it as far as my thinking goes. Okay, so here's a different way of looking at it. This looks like, what the heck is that? It's kind of like an orbit. Like, it's like all the keys orbiting around. It's still the circle of fifths. You got C, G, D, A, E. Those are all fifths. C, F, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat. Those are all fourths. So you get this circle sort of orbiting around, right, another circle. It's almost like, ooh, what? Wait, look at this line. This is the line of bilateral symmetry that splits the circle, and it sort of rotates around, if you see that. But the shape itself, this septagonal shape inside, actually rotate the same way. So it's just kind of interesting. It's just a, you know, it's just a funky thing, that's all. This is my visual without key signatures and reading music and reading the treble clef, because most of the time when people teach music theory, they're kind of like teaching you how to read music. Like if you go to school for music, you're like learning the treble clef maybe, and you're learning music theory, and it's super overwhelming. But honestly, you do not need to read music in order to know music theory. Crazy, right? You don't need to read music in order to understand music theory. Music theory is letters and numbers and a bunch of other words and vocabulary that goes along with that. Reading music is an entirely different skill that has nothing to do with music theory, actually, other than the fact that you can use it to understand music theory. Like, there's plenty of people who can read really well, but have no clue about music theory. You know who you are. Just kidding. But it's obviously good to do both. And so this is kind of like key signatures, but for people who don't read music. Now, it's a lot messier, obviously. It's better to just know the sharps and the flats. Now, how does that relate to the guitar? Because I went on this big, long explanation of what the circle of fifths is and why it's kind of important. And so how do you apply it to the guitar? Well, there's a couple different ways that I like to apply it. Learn the notes on the fretboard by knowing the theory. So your fifth on the guitar is like your power chord. So this is a C, C5. You got a C and a G right there, and then you can add the octave on top with another C. So, funny thing about this shape on the guitar, this is a way that the circle can kind of help you visualize, or the guitar can help you visualize the circle, and you can use the guitar to learn all this stuff, is C and G, a perfect fifth looks like this. Well, G to C, a perfect fourth looks like this, right? One fret to the next. Fifth fret of the D string, fifth fret of the G string. And so this is a perfect fourth. It's G to C, G to C. This is a perfect fifth, C to G. So that means they're inversions. When you flip one upside down, you take a perfect fifth and you flip it upside down and put the C on top instead of on the bottom, you get a perfect fourth. Which, I mean, if you look, C to G, right, that's a fifth going this way. Well, if you go from G to C, that's a fourth. So it doesn't matter where you are on the circle. If you're moving this direction, you're moving in fourths. If you're moving this direction, you're moving in fifths, okay? So what I think is good to understand is that the key of G major has one sharp, F has one flat. You can use both of these to find every other key. Now there's tricks to this. In the key of D major, you have F sharp and C sharp. If you know that G major has an F sharp, you just add a sharp for D major, a fifth above that. A fifth above F sharp, F, G, A, B, C is a C sharp. So in the key of D, you get a C sharp. C sharp also happens to be a half step below D. In the key of A, guess what? What's a half step below A? It's a G sharp. G sharp is a fifth above C sharp, right? Because if G is a fifth above C, then G sharp is a fifth above C sharp. And when I say fifth, I actually mean what they call a perfect fifth. And this way is called a perfect fourth. Perfect meaning they don't sound major or minor. There's tons of ways that you can pull math and all these like funky little tricks out of the circle. There's like so many, I can't even go over all of them, but here's what I recommend. The sharp side of the circle, half step below the root. Okay, you know that. There's gotta be a half step below the root, and that will get you the sharp. So half step below F sharp is E sharp. E sharp exists, what? Half step below B is A sharp, okay? Half step below E, D sharp. Half step below A, G sharp. Half step below D, C sharp. Half step below G is F sharp. So if you know the half step below all these notes, and it's important for you to be able to do this quickly in your head. If you really want to be good at theory and you want to know theory, this type of thing shouldn't be strange or unusual to you. It might take a while for you to get really a hold of it, so don't feel bad if you're struggling with this, but it's not that difficult, in my opinion. You can count, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. You can count up to 13. Anybody can do that pretty much. And then A, B, C, D, E, F, G, you know, the first 7 letters of the alphabet. That's what the entirety of music theory is based on. And notice that the sharp side of the circle is all natural notes. C, G, D, A, E, B, except for F sharp, right? F is over here. Just remember that if the root of a major scale is a natural note, it's a sharp key, unless it's F. Then it's a flat key. So F, let's talk about the flat side for a second. Flats need love too, especially if you're a jazz musician. So F has a B flat in it. B flat is a fourth above F. So F to B flat is a perfect fourth. Well, look at that. So the next key, B flat, has a B flat in it, obviously, and then an E flat. Oh, B flat has a B flat and an E flat. And so the next key, A flat, the flat side of the circle is literally telling you the key signature as you go around it. You just look at the next key. So F has a B flat. B flat has a B flat and an E flat. E flat has a B flat, E flat, and an A flat. A flat, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, right? D flat, the key of D flat major, has all these flats plus G flat. And then G flat has all these flats plus C flat, which is actually also a key. The key of C flat, there's a key of C sharp as well. So C flat, which I didn't put on here because it would just make it messier. C flat has all flats. It's just C major, but everything's flat. C sharp, it's also not on here, is just C major, but everything is sharp. Pretty simple for the most part. Those 3 keys are probably the easiest to understand because like it's either all sharps, all flats, or nothing. It's the other ones that tend to be a little bit more confusing. But hopefully this video helped you have some tools to memorize it. And once you memorize the notes, then you can take your scale positions, which a bonus part of this video is how do I categorize scale positions? Well, I think about which finger plays the lowest root, and the lowest roots are on the E string, A string, and D string, okay? So there's one for, and because there's 7 shapes for all scales, there's another video I've made that's about 7 shapes for all scales. You can look that up. So there's one on the E string for the pointer finger playing the root. There's one on the E string for the middle finger playing the root. There's one on the E string for the pinky playing the root. There is not one for the ring finger playing the root. Unless you're in first position, but that's in a different video too. So index on the A, middle on the A, pinky on the A, and then we have one with the pointer on the D string. So that makes 7 shapes. We got E index major, E middle major, E pinky major, A index major, A middle major, A pinky major, and D index major. 7 shapes. If you memorize those 7 shapes, you have all the keys as far as the way they look on the fretboard, and you can move them around. You can play all over that. There's another video that I made that describes that. So there you have it. There's one of the quickest explanations I can give on the circle of fifths and how to master your understanding of it, at least at first. Thanks for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.